Simply Inner says, how do you discern if it isn't? Oh, how do you discern if it is God's punishment for God's protection in singleness? When you've been single for many years, is it possible to have missed God's will resulting in long-term singleness? Good question. Let's break it down. God doesn't punish sin as a sin does it. God has no need to punish you. He punished his son. So God doesn't punish us. Our sins already do that. Our bad decisions do that. That's what punishes us, the consequence of our own sin. Everything, all of God's wrath was emptied on Jesus. The rest is being compiled until judgment day on those of disbelief. But God doesn't punish, God chastens. Punishment means I sent this evil in your life. I sent this in your life to teach you a lesson. No, I'm teaching you a lesson by pruning you. And if you don't cooperate with the pruning phase, what you practice sinfully will be the punishment only that you brought on your own self. There's not one punishment that God brings on people. It's the punishment of our sins. It's our sins that punish us. All the consequences that we had in life came from sinful habits that materialize into consequences. So you got to change the way you think. God doesn't punish us. God chastens us. Punishment means I beat you, I scold you, I put a cancer on you, I put disease on you, I do all that. No. God don't need to do all that. You don't want to follow me, my sins will punish you. Pruning is different than punishment. Punishment means you did that, so now what I do is punishment. No, but because I did that to my son, that punishment that was meant for you was on him. What I'm doing now is pruning, and it feels like punishment. It feels like pain. No, it is God teaching you. It's God grooming you. It's God pulling you away from your idols. That pain you feel is the tear between you and your idol. So you thinking God is bruising you and beating you and scolding you. No, he's just pulling you off your idol. And that's what happens when you get pulled off your idol. You start kicking and screaming. You start hurting. You start like, God, I ain't never felt this pain before. So God doesn't punish. He prunes. Now, how do you discern if it's God's punishment? It is God's protection is evident in a lot of different ways. But God's protection, how can I put it? Is basically, despite your kicking and screaming, despite your plea, he stays quiet. Despite your anger, despite your animosity, he stays consistent because he knows this will benefit you in the end. But because you're free will, you can do what you want to do. And that's where the punishment comes. It's the punishment from the taskmaster, the slave master, which are sins that we choose to practice in. Because we're no longer slaves to sin anymore. But because we have a slave's mentality, we find ourselves operating in sins often that then brings unnecessary consequence on us. When you've been single for many years, is it possible to have missed God's will? No. Don't get me wrong. You could miss opportunities within God's will, but there's still some will left, is what I'm saying. What I was supposed to do at 23, I can still do it now, but I'm married now. I'm older. You see what I'm saying? I may not be able to do it at the level of youth that I could have. And that's the issue that we have to think about, is that there's some things that we're supposed to do in our youth that marriage and children and life can kind of keep us from really being effective in. Your next layer is it possible to have missed God's will resulting alone? No. Right now, you determine if you're going to be long-term single. And you got to look at your life and take responsibility and say, what am I practicing right now that is punishing me and keeping me away from living the life that I want to live? That's what you got to do. Look in the mirror and say, what am I doing? Because it's not God punishing you. It's the sins that we practice that's punishing us. Hope that helps.